It is currently 11:06 p.m. It is May 20th, and you guys, literally this morning, I have never been so sick in my entire life. Well, maybe that's an exaggeration, but I'm just saying that I my body just couldn't function at all, and I just didn't, come to read. But anyway, the day went on. I ate food. I took meds, I drank a lot of water, and I feel better now. So we're gonna read for 30 minutes because the grind doesn't stop. I could literally, like, I could finish this all today, but um, I think I still have like a couple of days to finish this small little chunk right here. Okay, let's get started. It was 20 minutes before Chris climbed the embankment to sit down beside us. The clouds had begun to break. The clouds had begun to break. Spears of sun came down through the rips. The bushes seemed to have gone 3 shades darker green in the last 45 minutes. He was mud all the way up one side and down the other. His hair was standing in muddy spikes. The only clean parts of him were the whitewashed circles around his eyes. You're right, Gordy, he said. Nobody gets last dibs, Goocher all around, huh? I nodded. 5 minutes passed. No one said anything, and I happened to have a thought. I think like I just like genuinely like okay, number 1, I think my reading abilities have definitely improved. Number 2, I genuinely think I just have a stuttering problem because there is no way that I just managed to keep stuttering. And you know what? I'm just gonna accept it. I'm just gonna accept it. That's just who I am. Okay. I nodded. 5 minutes passed. No one said anything, and I happened to have a thought just in case they did call uh, Bannerman. I went back to the embankment and over to where Chris had been standing. I got down on my knees and began to comb carefully through the water and mash grass with my fingers. What you doing? Teddy asked, joining me. It's to your left, I think, Chris said and pointed. I looked there, and after a minute or two, I found both shell casings. They winked in fresh sunlight. I gave them to Chris. He nodded and stuffed them into a pocket of his jeans. Now we go, Chris said. Hey, come on, Teddy yelled in real agony. I want to take him. Listen, dummy, Chris said. If we take him back, we could all wind up in the reformatory. It's like Gordy says. Those guys could make up a story they wanted to. What if they said we killed him, huh? How would you like that? I don't give a damn, Teddy said so sulkily. Then he looked at us with absurd hope. Besides, we might only get a couple of months or so as accessories. Accessories, yeah. I mean, we're only 12 freaking years old. They ain't gonna put us in Shawshank. Chris said softly. You can't get in the army if you got a record, Teddy. I was pretty sure that was nothing but a bald faced lie, but somehow this didn't seem the time to say so. Teddy looked at Chris for a long time, his mouth trembling. Finally, he managed to squeak out, No, ask Gordy. He looked at me hopefully. He's right, I said. Feel like a great big turd. He's right, Teddy. First thing they do when you volunteer is to check your name through R&I. Holy God. We're gonna shag back to the trestle, Chris said. Then we'll get off the tracks and come into Castle Rock from the other direction. If people ask where we were, we'll say we went camping up on Brickyard Hill and got lost. Milo Pressman knows better, I said. That creep at the Florida market does too. Well, we'll say Milo scared us, and that's when we decided to go up to Brickyard. I nodded. That might work. If Vern and Teddy could remember to stick to it. What about if our folks get together? Vern asked. You worry about it if you want, Chris said. My dad will still be juiced up. Come on then, Vern said, eyeing the screen of trees behind us in the back Harlow Road. He looked like he expected Bannerman along with a brace of bloodhounds to come crashing through at any moment. Let's get while the getting's good. We were all on our feet now, ready to go. The birds were singing like crazy, pleased with the rain and the shine, the worms, and just about everything in the world, I guess. We all turned around as if pulled on strings and looked back at Ray Brower. He was lying there, alone again. His arms had flopped out when he turned him over, and he was now sort of spread eagled as if to welcome the sunshine. Why is that like kind of funny? Sorry. For a moment, it seemed all right, a more natural death scene that any ever constructed from for a viewing room audience by a mortician. Then you saw the bruise, the caked blood on the chin and under the nose, and the way the corpse was beginning to bloat. You saw that the blue bottles had come out with the sun, and they were circling the body, buzzing indolently. You remember that gassy smell, sickish but dry, like farts in a closed room. He was a boy our age, he was dead, and I rejected the idea that anything about it could be natural. I pushed it away with horror. Okay, Chris said, and he meant to be brisk, but his voice came out his throat like a handful of dry bristle from an old whisk broom. Double time. We started we started to almost trot back the way we had come. We didn't talk. I don't know about the others, but I was too busy thinking to talk. There were things that bothered me about the body of Ray Brower. They bothered me then, and they bother me now. A bad bruise on the side of his face, a scalp lacer, a what? A bad bruise on the side of his face, a scalp lacer, laceration, a bloody nose. No more, at least no more visible. People walk away from bar fights in worse condition and go right drinking. Yet the train must have hit him. Why else would his sneakers be off his feet that way? Oh my god. And how come the engineer hadn't seen him? Could it be that the train had hit him hard enough to toss him, but not to kill him? I thought that under just the right combination of circumstances that could have happened. Had the train hit him, a hefty, teeth rattling side swipe as he tried to get out of the way, hit him and knocked him in a flying backward somersault over the caved in banking. Had he perhaps lain awake, trembling in the dark for hours, not just lost, but disoriented as well, cut off the world, maybe he died of fear. A bird with crushed tail feathers once died in my cupped hands in just that way. Its body trembling and vibrated lightly, its beak open, closed, its dark bright eyes stared up at me. Then the vibration quit, the beak froze half open, and the black eyes became lackluster and uncaring. It could have been that way with Ray Brower. He could have died because he was simply too frightened to go on living. But there was another thing that bothered me the most of all, I think. He had started off to go berrying. I seem to remember the news reports saying he'd been carrying a pot to put his berries in. When we got back, I went to the library and looked it up in the newspaper just to be sure, and I was right. He'd been berrying, and he'd had a pail or a pot, something like that, but he hadn't found it. We found him, and we found his sneakers. We must have thrown it away somewhere between Chamberlain and the boggy patch of ground in Harlow where he died. He perhaps clutched it even tighter as first, as though it linked him to home and safety. But as if his fear grew with it, that sense of being utterly alone, with no chance of rescue except for whatever he could do by himself, or as the real cold terror set in, he might threw it away into the woods on the side of the tracks, or the other, hardly even noticing it was gone. I've thought of going back and looking for it. How does that strike you for morbid? I've thought of driving to the end of Back Harlow Road in my almost new Ford van and getting out of some bright summer morning all by myself. My wife and children far off in another world where if you turn a switch lights come on in the dark. I've thought about how it would be pulling my pack out of the back and resting it on the customized van's rear bumper while I carefully remove my shirt and tie it around my waist, rubbing my chest and shoulders with muscle insect repellent and then crashing through the woods to where that boggy place was, the place where we found him. Would the grass grow up yellow there in the shape of his body? Of course not. There would be no sign, but still you wonder and you realize what a thin film there is between your rational man costume, the Rider Witch leather elbow patches on his curadori jacket, and the capering, Gordon mitts of childhood, then climbing the embankment, now overgrown with weeds, and walking slowly beside the rusted tracks and rotted ties toward Chamberlain. Stupid fantasy. An expedition looking for 20-year-old blueberry bucket, which was probably cast deep into the woods or plowed under the bulldozer, ready a half-acre plot for a tract house or deeply overgrown by weeds and brambles. It had been it had become invisible, but I feel sure it is still there, somewhere along the old discontinued GS and WM line, and at times the urge to go look is almost a frenzy. It usually comes early in the morning when my wife is showering and the kids are watching Batman and Scooby Doo and Channel 38 out of Boston, and I feel like most like the pre-adolescent Gordon LaChance that strode the earth walking and talking and occasionally crawling on his belly like a reptile. That boy was me, I think, and the thought which follows chilling me like a dash of cold water. Which boy do you mean? Sipping a cup of tea, looking at the sun slanting through the kitchen windows, hearing the TV from one end of the house and the shower from the other, feeling the pulse behind my eyes. That means I got through one beer too many the night before. I feel I sure could find it. I could see clear metal winking through rust, the bright summer sun reflecting it back to my eyes. I would go down the side of the embankment, push aside the grasses that had grown up and twine toughly around its handle, and then I would what? Why simply pull it out one at a time. I would turn it over and over in my hands, wondering at the feel of it, marveling at the knowledge that the last person to touch it had been long years in his grave. Suppose there was a note in it. Help me, I'm lost. Of course there wouldn't be. Boys don't go to pick blueberries with paper and pencil. But just suppose, I imagine the awe I'd feel be as dark as an eclipse. Still, it's mostly just the idea of holding that pail in my two hands, I guess, as much a symbol of my living as his dying proof that I really do know which boy it was, which boy of the five of us holding it, reading every year in its cake of rest and fading of its bright shine, feeling it, trying to understand the suns that shone on it, the rains that fell on it, the snows that cover it, and to wonder where I was with each thing happened to its lonely place, where I was, what I was doing, who I was loving, how I was getting along, where I was. I'd hold it, read it, feel it, and look at my own face in whatever reflection might be left. Can you dig it? I did not understand that chapter at all, but moving on. We got back to Castle Rock a little past 5 o'clock on Sunday morning, the day before Labor Day. We had walked all night. Nobody complained, although we all had blisters and we were all ra- ravenously hungry. My head was throbbing with a killer headache, and my legs felt twisted and burning with fatigue. Twice we had to scramble down the embankment to get out of the way of frights. One of them was going our way, but oh my god. One of them was going our way, but moving far too fast to hop. It was seeping daylight when we got to the trestle spanning the castle again. Chris looked at it, looked at the river, looked back at us. Frick it, I'm walking across. If I get hit by the train, I won't have to watch out for frickin' Ace Merrill. We all walked across it. Plotted might be the better bird. No train came. When we got to the dump, we climbed the fence. No Milo and no Chopper, not this early, and not on a Sunday morning, and went directly to the pump. Vern primed it, and we all took turns sticking out our heads under the icy flow, slapping the water on our over our bodies, drinking until we could hold no more. Then we had put our shirts on again because the morning seemed chilly. We walked limped we walked limped back into town and stood for a moment on the sidewalk in front of the vacant lot. We looked at our treehouse so we wouldn't have to look at each other. Well, Teddy said at last, see ya in school on Wednesday. I think I'm gonna sleep until then. Me too, Bryn said. I'm too pooped to pop. Chris whistled tunelessly through his teeth and said nothing. Hey man, Teddy said awkwardly. No hard feelings, okay? No, Chris said, and suddenly his somber, tired face broke into a sweet and sunny grin. We did it, didn't we? We did the we did the bastard. Yeah, Vern said. You're a freaking A. Now Billy's gonna do me. So what? Chris said. Reggie's gonna tool up on me, and Ace is probably gonna tool up on Gordy, and somebody else will tool up to Teddy. But we did it. That's right, Vern said. But but we still sounded unhappy. Chris looked at me. We did it, didn't we? He asked softly. It was worth it, wasn't it? Sure it was, I said. Frick this, Teddy said in his dry, I'm losing interest way. You guys sound like frickin' Meet the Press. Give me some skin, man. I'm gonna toot I'm gonna toot home and see if Mom's got me on the 10 most wanted list. We all laughed. Teddy gave us his surprise, oh Lord, what now look, and we gave him skin. Then he and Vern started off in their direction, and I should have gone in mine, but I hesitated for a second. Walk with you, Chris offered. Sure, okay. We walked a block or so without talking. Chris, well, Castle Rock was awesomely quiet in the day's first light, and I felt an almost holy tiredness is slipping away sort of feeling. We were awake and the whole world was asleep, and I almost expected to turn the corner and see my dear standing at the far end of Carbon Street, where the GS and WM tracks passed through the mill's loading yard. Finally, Chris spoke. They'll tell, he said. You bet they will, but not today or tomorrow if that's what you're worried about. It'll be a long time before they tell, I think. Years, maybe. They're scared, Chris. Teddy. Teddy especially. They won't take him into the army, but Vern's scared too. They'll lose some sleep over it, and there's gonna be times his fall when it's right on the tips of his tongues to tell somebody, but I don't think they will. And then, you know what? It sounds freaking crazy, but I think they'll all forget it ever happened. He was nodding slowly. I don't think of it like that. You see through people, Gordy. Man, I wish I did. You do, though. We walked another block in silence. I'm never gonna get out of this town, Chris said, and sighed. When you come back from college or summer vacation, you'll be able to look at me and Vern You'll be able to look me and Vern and Teddy up and down at Suki's after 7 to 3 shifts over, if you want to. Except you'll probably never want to. He laughed a creepy laugh. Quit jerking yourself off, I said, trying to sound tougher than I felt. I was thinking about being out there in the woods, about Chris saying, and maybe I took it to the old lady Simmons and told her, and maybe the money was all there, but I got a 3 day vacation anyway, because the money never showed up, and maybe the next week old lady Simmons had his brand new skirt, and when she came to school, the look in his eyes. No jerk off, Daddy-o, Chris said. I rubbed my fingers. I rubbed my first finger against my thumb. This is the world's smallest violin playing. My heart pumps. Purple piss for you. He was ours, Chris said, his eyes dark in the morning light. We had reached the corner of my street and we stopped there. It was 6:15, back toward town. We could see the Sunday Telegram trunk pulling up in front of Teddy's uncle's stationery shop. A man in blue jeans and a tee threw off a bundle of papers. They bounced upside down on the sidewalk, showing the color funnies, always Dick Tracy and Blondie on the first page. Then the truck drove on, its driver intent on delivering the outside world to the rest of the whistle stops up the line. Otisfield, Norway South Paris, Waterford, Stoneham. I wanted to say something more to Chris and didn't know how to. Give me some skin, man, he said, sounding tired. Chris, skin. I gave him some skin. I'll see you. He grinned, the same sweet, sunny grin. Not if I see you first. He walked off, still laughing, moving easily and gracefully, as though he didn't hurt like me and have blisters like me, and like he wasn't lumped and bumped with mosquito and chigger and black fly bites like me, as if he didn't have a care in the world, as if he was going to some real boss place instead of just home to a 3 room house. Shack. Shack would have been closer to the truth, with no indoor plumbing and broken windows covered with plastic, and a brother who was probably laying for him in the front yard. Even if I'd known the right thing to say, I probably could have said it. Speech destroys the functions of love, I think. That's a hell of a thing for a writer to say, I guess, but I believe it to be true. If you speak to tell a deer you mean it no harm, it glides away with a single flip of its tail. The word is the harm. Love isn't what these poets like Miss McCowan want you to think it is. Love has teeth, they bite, the wounds never close. No word, no combination of words can close those love bites. It's the other way around, that's a joke. If those wounds dry up, the words die within them. Take it from me. I've made life from I've made life from the words, and I know that it is so. Wait, what? Oh my god, I have to take a picture of this. Wait, I have to. This is such a crazy line. Such a crazy line. Oh my god, wait. Okay. Okay, we're gonna read like okay, we're gonna read like two more pages. The back door was locked, so I fished the spare key from under the mat and let myself in. The kitchen was empty, silent, suicidally clean. What does that mean? I could hear the hum in the fluorescent bars over the sink made when I turned on the switch. It had been literally years since I had been up before my mother. I could even remember the last time such a thing had happened. I took off my shirt and put it in a plastic clothes basket behind the washing machine. I got a clean rag from under the sink and sponged off with it, face, neck, pits, belly. Then I unzipped my pants and scrubbed my crotch until my skin began to hurt. Thanks for that information. That was very useful. It seemed I couldn't get clean enough down there, although the red wheel left. The bloodsucker was rapidly fading. I still have a tiny crescent shaped scar there. My wife once asked about it, and I told her a lie before I was even aware I meant to do so. When I was done with the rag, I threw it away. It was filthy. I got a dozen eggs and scrambled six of them together, and they were semi solid in the pan. I added a side dish of crushed pineapple and half a quart of milk. I was just sitting down to eat when my mother came in, her gray hair tied in a knot behind her head. She was wearing a faded pink bathrobe and smoking a camel. Gordon, where have you been? Camping, I said, and began to eat. We started off in Vern's field and then went to the backyard hill. Vern's mom said she would call you, didn't she? She probably talked to your father, she said, and glided past me to the sink. She looked like a pink ghost. The fluorescent bars were less in kind of her face. They made her complexion look almost yellow. She sighed, almost sobbed. I miss Dennis most of the morning, she said. I always look in his room, and it's always empty. Gordon, always. Yeah, I said. He always slept with his window open and blankets. Gordon, did you say something? Nothing important, Mom. And the blankets pulled up on his chin, he finished. Then then she just stared at out the window, her back to me, and went on eating. I was trembling all over. Alright, y'all. That's it. I think we'll finish like this is literally how much we have left. Can y'all see that? That's it. Like that's all that we have. Yeah. I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.